So good to be here. Coach and I were talking this morning. He got here, and I said, "What time did you get up?" He said, "I don't know if I ever really went to bed last night." And he said, "How about you?" I said, "I was up early too." And something awesome about being here today with this opportunity as you guys get rolling for another year. And I appreciate so much this chance to be here. Whenever you prepare a talk about something, you guys know this. Any education majors in the room? Yeah, you guys know this. Like when you tell something to somebody else, it kind of makes you examine if you're living it too. So you learn a lot by kind of getting ideas together for other people. So it's great to be here with you guys. I'm going to try to keep my comments short this morning because I know that there's a lot on you guys' mind. But it's a really awesome thing to be here in this room with all you guys getting ready to go for the first day. I want to welcome also our audience listening on AM 1100 and watching us live on the video stream today as well. Great to have everybody else here in the room with us today over at Concordia College. So I will get right to it. The longer that I live, the more that I believe that the most dangerous combination in sports is when perseverance meets optimism. Perseverance meeting optimism. It's true in business, it's true in education, it's true pretty much in any situation where there's somebody who's trying to get ahead, who's trying to make a better way. Perseverance and optimism is so tough because when you think about it, the guy that sees the positives and everything who just won't quit is almost impossible to beat. Almost impossible to beat. And we talk a lot about the perseverance part, but the optimism part is something I think is underrated. Do you look at things as an opportunity? Are you excited about today? How can you not be excited on this day, right? I mean, what a day to get out and play some football and get our season started. So I've been trying to live that out a little bit this summer myself, and I want to share that story with you guys a little bit here today too, and draw out 3 truths from a great story in the Bible that I think can help us as we get going. But if you guys would, I'd like to pray. It helps get me calmed down and get me in the right mind frame for what we're doing here today. Father God, I want to say thank you for Coach Aran. Thank you for the way he leads this program. Thank you for these men in this room. Thank you for this opportunity. Father, I've got no idea what these men need to hear this morning, but you do. So, Lord, take out of me everything that's me and put in me everything that's you so that I might have just the right words that the guys need to hear this morning. Thank you for our health. Thank you for this beautiful day and a chance to celebrate and play this great game of football. Thank you for this time together, Lord. Open our hearts and our minds so we can all learn this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. So in my older days, I've gotten to be a marathon runner. Something I never thought when I was sitting in a chair like you guys your age, like why would you want to run that far for any reason unless you were like trying to escape a wild animal or something. But I don't know, as time goes on, you want to stay competitive, you want to challenge yourself physically, and I guess that's my story. And I've run 2 marathons. Last year I ran Twin Cities Marathon in 4 hours, 39 minutes. That's not very fast, but for me it was all right. And it got so that I was close enough to 4.5 hours. I'm like, I really want to hit 4 hours and 30 minutes this year. I want to break that 4.5. It's a big deal for me. I'll be 50. I'm 50 now. We'll be 51 in November, so I'd love to do that this year. So whenever you want to find out how to get somewhere, you find people that have been there before and ask them. Now, they're on the road back to where you're going. And so when the Fargo Marathon happened in May, there was a guy I saw that ran the marathon in 2 hours and 35 minutes. And he's 53 years old. Now, 2 hours and 35 minutes in a marathon, that is hauling. I mean, that's fast. I don't care how old you are, that is moving. And so I talked to this guy, got his phone number, got in contact with him. He's kind of been my guru this summer. And I said, how do you do that when there's this obstacle, there's this hump that you want to get over, there's a thing you're knocking on that door, you want to break it down, how do you do that? And he gave me some great advice. And I'm going to work that in today. And he said, Steve, the number one thing is just understand that getting over the hump is hard. That last obstacle that stands in your way sometimes is the hardest one, and it sometimes hangs out there for a long time. And that certainly speaks to me, and maybe it can speak to us in this room here today too, because you guys have had some great seasons, but there's a hump that I know you guys are trying to get over as well. What do people say about Concordia football outside of this room? What do they say around the conference? What do they say around Moorhead, Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo? What do people say? Well, there's usually a but that's part of the story about Concordia football. Great team, but can't quite get over the hump. Great team, 8-2, darn near every year, but can't beat so-and-so. Great, there's all kinds of wonderful, glowing, positive, complimentary things, but there's a but. And I know that's exactly what Coach is talking about in the video there. Why not us? Why not this time? So how do you do that? Sounds great to say, well, this is the year. We're going to figure this is our year. How do you do that? A few things that I've learned that I'd like to pass along, and a great story out of the Bible, too, that can help. So whether it's in any part of your life, school, sports, relationships, whatever, you're going to have some times when you've got to get over that hump. And I want to talk about big picture today, not so much your game today. You might win by 3 touchdowns. You might win by a point. I don't know how the game will play out. But I want to look at it from the 10,000-foot view, taking a look down. And how do you win those big late season games? How do you get that championship drive? How do you make that one last stand defensively that's going to get the job done for you? What can we learn? Well, whenever I look for a good story of inspiration, the Old Testament is the place that I go. Back at a time when men were men, and the stories are so good you couldn't make them up if you wanted to. There's so much great truth in the Bible. I want to talk to you about a man named Joseph today. And Joseph, we learn about him in Genesis 37. We start getting the scoop on him. And he was the son of a man named Jacob. Jacob had his son Joseph. He'd had some other sons as well, but really wanted another son. And it had been years. He was getting up there in age, and it wasn't happening for him. Finally, he was able to have another son, and he was so excited. And the Bible says that he loved that son more than the others. Gave him a special robe. You've heard the Joseph and the coat of many colors story probably. And not a real smart idea if you're the dad, right? I mean, if you want him to get beat up by your brothers all the time, that's what you do. You set him out as something special. And even Joseph wasn't all that smart when he was young. He would tell his brothers, who didn't like him anyway, he was the youngest, and taken care of by dad. He would tell his brothers, hey, I had a dream, and in my dream we all had a shock of wheat, and your shocks of wheat bowed down to mine. I don't know about you guys. I've got a brother that wouldn't have gone over very well in our family. Maybe you guys know what I'm saying there. So the things like that didn't get him off to a great start with his brothers. So they hated him, and they decided that they were going to try to get rid of him. And they said, let's just kill him and tell Dad that some big wildebeest got him or whatever. And then one guy said, no, let's try to make some money on this transaction here and get something for him. So they sold him to a bunch of banditos. And then they ended up selling him to a guy that was in kind of the royal order of Egypt at that time, a guy named Potiphar. So Joseph was sold into slavery. He doesn't know where things are going to take him. He doesn't know how things are going to end up. He's the lowest of the low at this point. I mean, you can't get in a worse situation than where Joseph is at. And he's like, I don't know, am I going to die? Who knows what they're going to do with me, whatever. Well, he ends up actually not in a bad situation. And works hard, earns some trust with this guy named Potiphar, who was a general in Pharaoh's army, and kind of just works his way up a little bit and finds out that things are not so bad after all. So Joseph is learning, growing up, getting a little more humble. And what he's learning here is the more he trusts God, the better things go for him. He's learning these lessons, and he's making a good way. In Genesis 39, there's a great story about how tough this guy's mind was. All right, so he's a guy who's got a lot of things that's been given to him now in Potiphar's household. But it says in the Bible that Joseph was young and handsome, and Potiphar's wife started to take notice of him. And it says in the story that Potiphar's wife said she took notice of him and said, Joseph, come to bed with me. But he refused. He said, with me in charge, my master does not concern himself with anything in this house. Everything he owns has been entrusted to me. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be in the same room with her. So one day, while Potiphar is out, though, she says, I've had enough. I'm going to go get this guy. And she really comes after him. And she grabs him by the cloak and rips off a part of his robe. And he turns on and runs. When he sees trouble, he runs the other way as fast as he can go. So she's got this thing of cloth with him. Potiphar gets home and she says, look, your guy tried to come after me, and I had to fend him off, and I had to rip his coat. And finally, he left. And Potiphar's like, that doesn't sound like my guy here. And his buddies are all like, dude, you got to throw that guy in jail. He is bad news, and he's trouble. Get rid of him. So Potiphar says, okay. So he has him thrown in jail. Well, when he's in jail, he gets to know the prison guards pretty well. And the prison guards are like, this guy seems all right. And then after a while, one of the guys has a dream. One of the prison guards has a dream, and he can't figure it out, but he knows it's something he should try to figure out. So he says, do you have any idea, Joseph, what this is all about? Well, Joseph says, well, let me pray about it, and I'll see if I can figure this out for you. And he said, I know that God will give me the answer that we're looking for. So he does. He interprets this dream, tells the guard about it. Word gets up to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt at this time. Pharaoh's going through the exact same thing. He's having these dreams about weird stuff. He doesn't know what to make of it, but he's sure that there's some meaning that he needs to pull out of this thing. And so he's able to interpret this dream for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh moves him up in his command. Pretty soon he's the number 2 guy in all of Egypt. So he's completely flying up the charts, if you'll, moving up the top 25, I guess you could say, in the Pharaoh's order there. So look at where he was, and look at where he ended up. He goes from being scum of the earth, slave guy in the back of some Midianites' wagon somewhere, and all of a sudden he's like the VP of the country, and is entrusted with everything in that country. So it's an awesome story about a guy who got over the hump in a lot of different ways. And so there's 3 truths that jump out to me in this story, and I want to give them to you quick here. Inescapable truth number 1. You don't have to have a ton of experience to get a ton of results. You don't have to have a ton of experience to get a ton of results. Now, young guys on the team, this is for you. There's no substitute for the experience that you get when you're a senior. Being around the program, learning how things go, there's nothing that can replace that. But a lot of times when we're young, when we're starting out, we feel like, you know what, it's just going to be whatever, months, years, maybe someday I'll get a chance to whatever. You know what, God didn't create you to be great sometime down the line. He created you to be great right now, wherever you're at. Now that might look like different things. It might mean playing a lot. It might mean giving a good look on scout team. It might be just being one of those encouragement kind of guys who's just always got a good motor going. It might be a lot of different things. But remember, Joseph in this story, Joseph wasn't 50, 60 years old. He was late 20s. And he's number 2 in the country. So that tells you right somewhere there, he wasn't even 30 quite yet, and still he had done all these amazing things. God did not create you to do some great things sometime down the line. He's created you for greatness right now, so hang on to that. Inescapable truth number 2, Joseph didn't give up his toughness when things got hard and they weren't fair. How many times have we done that? I know I have. It's hard. I don't see the rewards coming. It's not fair. This guy's getting to do that in front of me. The girl I'm looking for, she's running around with some other guy. I'm working my tail off in this class. I'm doing everything I can. I can't seem to break over. I can't get over the hump. It's not fair. I'm guessing somewhere in this team, maybe in a locker room last few years, there's been a little bit of that. God, it's just not fair. It's hard. You know what? Anybody can be tough for a minute, but can you be tough for a while? Great football players, no different than great teachers, great social workers, great accountants, or whatever. The great ones are tough when it's hard and it's not fair and the road is long. So what kind of player are you? What kind of player are you? Are you the kind of guy that when we're up 3 scores and things are going well and I'm able to blow my guy off the line of scrimmage, now I'm tough? Or are you tough when you know that guy across from you happens to be a little bit better than you on that day? That happens to all of us. And you bashed your head against that wall 10 times. And I'm not getting anywhere. Are you still going to be as strong the 11th time? Or is your pad level going to rise? Are you going to be just a split second slower getting off the ball? Are you going to duck out of bounds maybe than trying to get that tough yard? If you're the quarterback, maybe we want you to run out of bounds once. I'm not saying that, but you guys know what I mean. There's situations when you gotta pound. One of the funnest things last year was watching that Whitewater game, and I saw that Whitewater offensive line come out of the huddle the first time. I'm like, these guys are big. You know what? Our D-line just crashed, and they didn't give up. And at first, they were pretty good on that front 5, but pretty soon our guys got there and started to win that line of scrimmage battle. That was a fun game to watch. So can you be that way when maybe it's third quarter, early fourth quarter, and you still haven't been able to move that guy? Can you be tough then? Anybody can be tough for a minute. Who can be tough for a long time? That's what you find out what people are made of. When I was coaching youth basketball, I used to tell the kids, hey, cut hard to the basket. The first 10 times you might not get the ball, but time number 11, you will, and you probably get an open layup. You got to be tough. You got to keep firing. You might be on the verge of something great. You cannot give up. You got to keep going because you don't know. You might be on the 1 yard line going into the end zone when you think you're only on the 1 yard line of your own, trying to get out of your own end zone. Don't quit. when you might have the thing that you're working for so long right in front of you there. And at some point, you have to decide that you're done coming in second. And it starts in your mind. Do you expect to win or do you hope to win? There's a big difference. I've watched games over the last few years, Division III, Division II, NFL, Division I, whatever, and I've seen so many games where I just know for a fact the team that won that close game at the end was just a team that knew that they were going to win. There was no other option for them. They just expected that they were going to win. There was no doubt in their mind at all. They had that blind faith that somehow, some way, we are going to find a way to win this game. It wasn't up for discussion. Everybody in the huddle knew that they were going to win that game. Is that the kind of huddle that you have here at Concordia? It all starts in your mind. When the score is close, the game is tight, we've already established that the teams are basically even, right? If you got a tie game in the fourth quarter, we know that the guys are about physically equal. Coaching is probably about equal. What's going to make the difference in that game? It's a team that says there is no way, no how that we are going to lose this game today. They play loose, they play confident, they're not tight, and they go out and execute. They're able to take everything the coaches gave them in that game plan and make it work because they believed, and they knew that guy next to them, and the guy next to them, and the guy next to them all believed the same thing too. Of course we'll win. There is no other outcome that they can see. Not saying you can't lose, it's just that you're in the best possible position to win when you believe that. What would happen if every member of this team believed that? 100%, end of discussion. Would you win every game? Maybe not, but you know for sure that you put yourself in the best possible position to do that, so you didn't beat yourself in your head between your ears. Huge truth there. At some point, you have to decide that enough is enough, that others have had their time, and now it's your turn. But collectively, you can't make that decision by just a couple of guys. The D-line can't make that decision and have it work for everybody else. That has to be all 125 of you guys deciding that this is our year. Other people have had their chance, and dang it, now it's our turn. And this is our time. And when you can get everybody in this room to believe that, every practice, every game, every road trip, every fourth quarter, every 2 minutes to go tie ball game, every 30 seconds we're down by 5, when you can get everybody to believe that somehow, some way we are going to win this game, there is no other option, then you've got a chance to be great. And if you do that, you can live with the results knowing at least you didn't beat yourself. That's hard. There's not regret in giving everything you've got, knowing you did your best, you were prepared, you were ready, you fought, and you lost. There's no shame in that. There's some shame when you look back and say, I beat myself because I wasn't ready. I gave up. I didn't have that confidence. That's hard to live with. The good news for you guys, while Joseph had to stay tough on his own, you don't have to. You have each other. In this room, I know you guys say together you will, and I believe that. I think this is a real together team. I hear Coach telling stories, and that's great, but you know what? There's levels that you guys can get to in together we will that you're not at yet. I know that for a fact. I saw it a couple weeks ago. I was here at your scrimmage with Mayville, and you guys played great. Ran the ball well, receivers getting open, quarterbacks making good throws. And when you guys would make a good throw or a good catch or a good tackle, it was like, yeah, pump it up and clap and slap the guy on the back, and it was awesome. And then the kickers went out. Kick went through, kick went through, kick went through. I didn't hear anything. There's nobody cheering that kicker on. Long snapper, nice, right on the money. So there's always more you can do. There's always another level you can get to. Be determined to find ways that everybody matters in your program every single minute. Your bus driver, your equipment managers, everybody. The guy who's on fifth string, who's out there busting his tail, who knows he's not going to get to play this year, maybe next year, maybe never. Make sure that guy knows that he's an important part of this thing too. Together you can and together you will, but that's got to really mean something. That can't just be something that's on a sign in the locker room or something on a handout that goes around. That's got to really mean something to you guys. So there's one thing instantly to get better today. You're going to need everybody to be a champion because you know what? There are teams that you're going to play this year that don't believe that you can beat them. That's a nice spot to be in, to be honest with you. But they think that they're that team that's going to find the way when the Cobbers come on the field. We're going to figure it out. We're going to beat these guys because we have for how many years or whatever. It's somebody else's time to turn those tables and get that done this year. Inescapable truth number 3, God's presence goes ahead of you when you're walking with Him. God's presence goes ahead of you when you're walking with Him. He goes ahead of you when you're walking with Him. It's an awesome thing. Some people think, if you follow God and you're serious about it, that people are going to make fun of you. I don't know. Maybe there's one or two people in the world like that. But to quote something that I hear on our station once in a while, I think that's fake news. Because you know what the truth of that is that people respect those who have a faith walk. They do. And there are people that, there'll be a couple people that are like, gee, what's up with that guy? But you know what? When you're walking with God and you're honest about it and you're serious about it, people are drawn to you because they see something in you that's different and that's unique. There's a joy, there's a peace there that's different. And you won't be able to explain it, and neither will they. But God's favor will go ahead of you when you're walking with Him. Think about our story about our man Joseph. He got to Potiphar's house instantly, up the charts he flew. Got into Pharaoh's court, boom, up he went. Pretty soon number 2 in command in those places right there. You have to have faith, and you have to believe in the things that you know are right. Joseph had the Pharaoh won over before he ever got there because God went ahead of him. God's presence goes with you. So let me leave you with this here, guys. How do you get God to go ahead of you? How do you do that? A lot of people want you to believe that all this stuff here in this book is just all really confusing. Who can figure it out? And there's some things that we may never quite get the answer to, but faith is really pretty simple. And here's we're doing this chapel on first day of the season. What a great time to just have that conversation. Great thing about God is He's not standing there with a closed fist. I'm going to bash into your life and break stuff until I get my way. God doesn't work that way. He reaches out with an open hand and says, come on, take my hand, let's go. Let's do this thing. When you do that, when you say, okay, God, I'm willing to trust you with my life and the consequences. It's now you number 1, me number 2, family, all those other things, but me somewhere down the line. When you are number 1 and you're willing to put God number 1 and you say that to Him, it opens up a whole bunch of new doors. And His presence goes with you. Doesn't mean life's going to be perfect. Doesn't mean He's going to solve all your problems. Doesn't mean the best looking girl on campus starts noticing you. Doesn't mean you get A's in all your classes. Doesn't mean you're going to go to the number 1 on the depth chart. It doesn't mean any of that. But what it means is that you get joy and peace knowing that there's a God who's with you every single day, every step that you take, and He'll give you that joy and that peace, and He'll never leave you. That's a promise that He makes to us. Accept His gift of forgiveness and strength, and you can have that kind of relationship with God where He is always walking ahead of you. And sometimes even gets involved, goes before you, intercedes on your behalf, and makes things happen before you ever get there. Truth number 1, you don't have to have a ton of experience to get a ton of results. Truth number 2, don't give up your toughness when things get hard and they're not fair. Truth number 3, God's presence goes ahead of you when you are walking with Him. Believe those things, guys. Believe those things. And watch perseverance meet optimism in your world, and then look out. Look out Concordia, look out MIAC, look out Future. Here you come. Coach Horan asked us to close with the Lord's Prayer as we get together each time on chapel. So guys, would you with me take your hats off and let's say it together. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, thanks, guys. Go get them today.
Hey, let's give Steve power 3. 1, 2, 3.